Hi folks, welcome to P&K Q&A for January the 3rd, 2021. I'm Peter, and Krow's going to join us in a minute, but while we're waiting for him, I'm going to open with the prayer for the world that I have. Heavenly Father, please bless the village councils and the mayors of the villages in my rural municipality. May they make decisions that benefit the people of the villages in my rural municipality. Please bless the Reeve and the council of my rural municipality. May they make decisions that benefit the people in my rural municipality. Please bless the City Council and the Mayor of the capital city of my province. May they make decisions that benefit the people of that city. Please bless the MLAs and the Premier of my province. May they make decisions that benefit the people of my province. Please bless the MPs and the Prime Minister of Canada. May they make decisions that benefit the people of Canada. And I pray for all of the people of Canada. May we have the courage to stand up for what is right. I pray for the Congress and the Supreme Court and the President of the United States. May they make decisions that benefit the people of the United States. And I pray for all of the people of the United States. May they have the courage to stand up for what is right. I pray for the leaders of all of the countries of the world. May they make decisions that benefit the people of their countries and benefit the world as a whole. And finally, Father, I pray for all of the people of the world. May we have the courage to stand up for what is right. Amen. Got a message here, let me just check. Just let Krow know we're starting. Okay, Krow's acknowledged. And as usual, if you see me going over looking like that or over here, I've got a notebook that I'm writing notes and so on. Okay, so I see we've got one viewer. Krow, if that's you, leave a message. And we're started. And Krow, can you see it? Sometimes it comes through on Krow's machine real quickly. Sometimes it takes a little while. I'm not quite sure what makes the difference. Let's see what, oh, got another view. Hello, whoever you are. I don't see, it doesn't tell me who's watching. It just says I've got 2 views right now. Anyway, welcome. I'm just going to see if Krow sees it. Krow, comma, do you see the feed, period? Question mark. Okay, I asked him if he sees the feed. Depending on what he says, I'll see if I can tag him. I know there's a way to start out a feed saying that you're going to have a guest, and then they can join when the feed starts. I'd had a bit of difficulty with the previous way I was doing this, so I've tried something different, so I wanted to do it as simply as possible, so we're going to do that. Okay. Okay, Crow's replying. We'll see what he says. Tells. Okay, it doesn't. Guest review requests. Allow viewers to request to join. Okay, I have that. Okay. Oh, I have to invite. Okay. Okay. All right, let's see if I can invite Krow. Yeah. All right. Crap, how do I get rid of? Okay, Krow, I tagged you. See if you can invite. Let's see. Seems like I have to relearn this every time I do something different. Anyway, that's good. I tagged you, comma. Do you see an option to join, question mark? Let's see what he says. I may have to actually send him an invitation. I thought it was set up so that viewers could request to be on, and then I could either approve them or not, but we'll see what happens. Doesn't work, try again. Stand by, Krow. Okay, I am going to guest requests, allow your viewers. Invite, okay. All right, Krow, I went ahead and invited you. Let's see if that, oh, that's invite to watch, crud. All right, I may have to start this over with a guest, I don't know. Okay, a little different. I sent you an invite, comma, see if that does anything. Okay, I'm telling Krow well, you just heard me. I told Krow I sent him an invite, and we'll see if that works. I may have to start this stream over. Wouldn't be the first time I've done it before. Scored the third watcher, that's great. Okay, here we go. Krow wants to be in. Let's approve. Oh, we're approved, and it says we're adding you. So Krow is being added. Hi, Krow, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
I hear static as well.
Yeah. Oh, do you hear static? How's that?
I hear static.
Yeah, I don't hear anything.
Oh dear. Can't tell whether it's where it's coming from, if it's in your headphone settings or in the plug or the...
No, clear as bell on my end.
Huh. Okay, no, I'm getting some kind of a buzzing on my...
check your audio connections. I don't know. Give it
Yeah,
a
no, I
twist if you got.
just got the iPad sitting here,
Oh,
so maybe plug and unplug your headset just to make sure it's not.
oh, I remember. We
There you
can't
go.
have it plugged into the computer while I'm doing this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I've got a clear signal on my end.
Okay. Let's see. I know that the headphones are almost dead.
Hmm.
So let's try
Oh,
this plug.
battery powered.
Yeah.
Power them up.
Did you get a buzzing on that one?
It's still clear.
Okay, perfect.
Hmm.
So
So I
we
did
got the
the.
technology.
We've got it, but do we know how to use it?
Yeah.
Mostly we do. I did my intro prayer for the world. I don't know if you noticed. I did for Canada and the world. I said we, not they or whatever, because I'm in Canada and obviously I'm on this planet. So a little subtle change there, but thought it appropriate. May we have the courage to stand up for what is right, not everybody else.
Yeah. And people don't understand the importance of language. I
Yes.
mean, language is like the only way that we can express what's going on in here. And if we don't have a good grasp of our own language, then we cannot hope to grasp the internal workings of ourselves. I mean, just like because you just need these words and these phrases to describe things, and so that you can share and connect with people as well. And even when Adam and Eve first came here, uh, before they showed up, the Urantia book tells us that they did quite a bit of work beforehand to improve the common language on this planet, to
Okay.
make it more expressive, because they knew that trying to communicate to primitive man with his primitive language would soon become a problem. But he also had to figure out a way to communicate with primitive man using descriptives that primitive man could understand, but at the same time expand his vocabulary. So, yeah, and yeah, and that does a lot, and just for the people, and it did do a lot for the people. Hell, they were lining up at the door to get taught in the Adamic schools in Eden. So, yeah, tons and tons of peoples were lining up. And you can, people are like, oh, but they were the first man and first women. Yeah, but you see, they fucked up when they wrote the Bible. They left in the part where Cain went went out from his parents and found a wife. Oh, where the hell did she come from? Did he mate with a monkey, or were there other humans on the planet? I don't know. Maybe that was left in there to give the people with discernment skills to see through the bullshit. Little helping hands like that for us to find the truth on our own are scattered throughout history. And spiritually intelligent people, they see these clues and they follow those clues. And that takes them into different paths. For me, that figuring out that everything that we have been taught since we were kids was bullshit started with the Noah story, the flood. And because I had a hard time wrapping my head around all these animals in this boat, because I grew up on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And our barn was pretty big. I mean, it was about 150 feet long by like 75 feet wide, and it went up 4 stories. And there was like, we had animals. And I used to just sit there and wonder, it's like, what the fuck would you do in a boat with all these animals? And then, and then I started reading like stories about the settlers when they first came over and what happened with the cows when they put them on a boat to come across the Atlantic. Do you know some of these stories, Peter?
No, but I can kind of imagine what might happen to a how
Oh,
react if you tried to put them on a ship.
well, they did get them on the boat. It's what happened once they got out to sea.
Yeah,
That was bad. Cows have like what, 7 stomachs?
yeah.
Yeah, well, imagine all 7 of those stomachs emptying out.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was not a pretty sight.
I think it's
I
four
mean,
on animal science class. Yeah, it's got. If you want to get technical, it's got one stomach with 4 chambers. But yeah, it's
yeah,
the
okay. But still, imagining all of that emptying out onto a boat.
mm-hmm.
And when you read the stories, like the personal logs of the people from that took these trips, like it's almost indescribable the horror of the whole thing. But they made it.
I heard the fish
Horses.
out of the water again today. Lost 3 of the ducks. The ducks got overboard; they'd be gone.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then there's shark food later. And yeah, because I mean, domestic ducks do not fly. You see, neither do domestic geese. They get like maybe 5 feet off the ground, maybe.
They'll fly a little bit, but not too much. No.
Yeah, they've got no lift, and and that's because they're breeded to be fat. I mean, we fatten them up so that we can eat them, and so we want more muscle mass than what a wild duck would have, and or a goose. Uh, yeah, so horses fared better in the voyages across, much better than cows did or any other of the animals. But yeah, 40 days, 40 nights in a boat with animals. I just thought to myself, that would be a complete nightmare all in it of itself. And then you got to think about the logistics of the food and and water. Well, you might be able to get water from overboard. I mean, you are on a boat, but it depends on the state of that water and whether that's a good idea or not. The humans are definitely going to want fresh water on board. So there you go there. And yeah, I was just like, wow. I was like, that's just insane thinking. And then, so you get on that path and you start like looking around the world and start reading other stories. And what you find out is that there are a ton of flood stories all around the world, a ton of them. And what you begin to figure out is that the only one that is out of sequence is actually the one that you find in the Christian Bible. That's the only one. The rest of them pretty much are consistent to about 11 to 12,000 years ago. And then you end up jumping into the realms of science, and then you find out that, well, shit me drawers, a meteorite hit the northern tip of Greenland about 11,500 years ago, and it sent enough snow, ice, and debris up through the atmosphere to flood different parts of the world and to create absolute chaos. So it wasn't coming down as like boulders and shit. It was coming down as like, uh, yeah, just ice and water. So yeah, essentially rain, but it wasn't rain. It was fallout from a meteor striking the earth. And there's evidence of it, like now that they're this far down the road looking at it. Evidence has been found in eastern United States, northeastern United States, of this meteor impact. And it's more pronounced because the North American continent didn't suffer that much of the fallout, not like the occultic and Middle Eastern region of the planet. And so, yeah, and also you also hear the stories of flood stories going even as far as Peru. So there was some catastrophe, but they're also dealing with two catastrophes that hit the planet anyways. And these stories have kind of come together and into one, which, you know, tends to happen after a few thousand years of people telling their stories. So what are you thinking about the energies this week?
It's interesting. I spent spent New Year's Day after swearing I would reduce my online social media time. I think I was kind of I didn't have any slow. But what was interesting was I thought I was going to have a migraine the next day, and I felt kind of sick for a little while. But once I started getting up and doing things, it actually went away more readily than it did before. So I don't know if maybe I'm learning to deal with that a little better, or the energy is different. It is definitely a different energy. I can, things are going along quicker but smoother.
Mm.
I remember something that Abraham Hicks would say. Um, Everything always becomes more, and then someone asked them about kind of the future and stuff of energy and things, and they said the energy dynamic on the planet will continually speed up, but it will always be gradual. And that's, a paradoxical statement, but I think I understand actually what they meant, because the turnover for new levels is like New Year's Day. I learned, I don't know, some kind of a I got a I got a some troll on Facebook to block me just from calling Kamala Harris a communist. I said, I'll just briefly tell you a bit about this exchange. Um, Somebody had put up one of those signs that the anti-Trump folks love to, the picture of the jacked up 4x4 with about 50,000 Trump flags on it, right? And then they said, oh well, we thought technology would be the great equalizer, but maybe it's time to put restrictions on the activity of morons, aka Trumpers. And then this guy commented, and I said something to him like, I don't remember the whole discourse now, but I asked him, okay, how will the Harris administration be so wonderful for America? And he asked me to clarify what I meant, and I said, well, they'll can Biden within a month. So tell me how that communist Harris will do. And he just, and there was a couple of other things, but he just blocked me over that. Oh, and you should watch the second and third thing of the Smarter Every Day. There's a 3-part series, and I may put it actually in the notes of this episode, because he interviews YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And I'm on the second one, but he actually talks to a guy in Latvia who was a secret agent for figuring out, the Russian bots and Russian influence in the election and so on. And that kind of actually was a thing. And for, like for $1, you could buy likes or this or that, a bot that would do that. But for more money, he's saying you could have a American Trump supporter of Swedish descent from West Virginia who is pro Second Amendment and pro life or something like that. You could actually buy this profile, and somebody would operate this profile for you. It's basically the social engineering stuff. This is coming out.
Yeah, and this is why.
I think I'll put the links in the description when we're done with this episode, so that you can watch those if you like.
That might be interesting. It's interesting that the buddy doing Smarter Every Day usually sticks with the science stuff. I'm kind of surprised he's getting into anything political. But
He's
say,
looking, yeah, he's looking at it from he's very subtle. He's looking at it from a science perspective. And yeah, no, it is. I did find it very interesting that he went that far, actually.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm gonna want to see just how he balances that between science and politics.
yeah.
That in
I'll definitely
itself is
those,
interesting.
I'll share those with you. You've probably seen anyway, so
Yeah.
we can. Yeah.
But yeah, you see, that's the problem with our new emerging technology is the scamming that's going on. It's distorting the truth,
Mm-hmm.
and that is never a good thing. I mean, this is where blockchain technology is definitely in our future for controlling this type of fraud. And it's almost necessary if we want to go forward as a coordinating society, because there's always going to be bad people. We just got to learn ways to protect ourselves from the bad deeds of others without isolating ourselves in our homes.
Yes.
And one way that that's going to happen, especially on the internet, because the internet is becoming a vital tool in our everyday lives. So just like, being able to get on the train to go to work, I mean, it's you have security and what have you, around that train so that bad people can't do bad things to you while you're waiting to get on your train to go to work. And this keeps society moving forward, because imagine, not being able to use the train to get to work. That would mean that companies wouldn't be able to bring employees in from other places to do the specialized tasks that they need done. So all of society falls apart. Well, that's the point that we're getting to, on the internet. If these scam artists continue uh, doing what they are doing, the whole infrastructure of the internet is going to fall apart. So we've got to do something to keep that infrastructure cohesive, and people having trust in that infrastructure that it's going to work for them every day, and that they can get their business done. And one of those tools that's in our future will be blockchain technology.
Okay. Yeah, and
And
I that the this gift of discernment that we've been talking about will also play into that, because that would be the ultimate countermeasure against these bad actors, is the actual people, legitimate people who are using the internet, being able to look at an account or whatever and saying, okay, that's not, because I had that experience with that troll, and then on January 1st and then January 2nd, yesterday, I watched the thing. He was talking to Twitter, and they were explaining this, what I just explained to you. And so I wondered now if some of these trolls who are some of them are probably legitimate, because I've met people like that, but I wonder if that one or something like it is it's a it's a foreign operative or something, pretending to be a Facebook denizen, just having this opinion or whatever.
well, the thing is that right now the way things stand is that these trolls are making digital currency from doing what they're doing.
Okay.
And so their bad behavior is being incentivized right now.
Right. Okay. So we need to take away the incentive for them to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's two ways you can do it. Same thing with any criminal activity. You can either regulate the shit out of what you're trying to protect to the point to where it becomes unusable by anybody, or you just create a more secure system. So right now, the path that we're on right now is essentially a path of regulation with no thought to rebuild the system almost from the ground up. Because the internet was never really built for public consumption. I mean, it started out in the military and then moved to universities.
Right. It was a private military network and then a intellectual academic thing, and was never originally intended to be a vehicle for pure social interaction. But
No,
that it's become that, but it hasn't been upgraded for that purpose yet.
no, and so yeah, and also at the same time, we have we have a antiquated internet system that we're trying to use in a very, I guess, uh, advanced technological way, and it's not working out. I mean, and so, and we also at the same time we have an economic system which is also antiquated and outdated. So we've got these two things converging all at the same time. What are the odds of that happening? And of course, there's also other things converging on this as well. Social pressures of society are also converging in on this. Because I mean, people are not happy with the way that we have built our society, with the way we have built our cities. You know, we didn't take nature into consideration. We didn't take our creator into consideration when we built our cities. And now we're paying a price for that, because and that price is wildlife, nature being rerouted around our cities, and them not being able to adapt to that rerouting and the displacement that we blatantly did. I mean, there are ways for us to build cities. I mean, we could have skyscrapers, we could have big, huge cities, but the thing is that our cities need to be, you know, built with like dense pasture areas, you know, nestled amongst the buildings. Our skyscrapers need to be built in such a way to allow insects like bees and stuff to have a highway to move across this city. There's some cities that are doing that actually. They they have a flower highway through the whole city.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
That was
where they've
and I don't know if they did this deliberately or not. I don't think so. In parts of Oklahoma City, I've been there. They have in parts of it, not all of it, but each, you know, there's office buildings and stuff on, they're like on 100-acre lot or something. They're just,
Mhm.
anyway, but yeah, I was thinking, and Mike, the fellow who was on last time, told us about how the Wascana Park in Regina is actually, I think it's the amount of green space there is actually, I think, bigger, he said, than Central Park. I'd have to look it up to see kind of what, but it's this big green highway through the middle of the city.
I think so.
The Trans-Canada Trail or something, it'd be cool if you could, you have road, you know, vehicular highways going through the cities. We should put, you know, hiking trails so you can hike or ride a bicycle or something in the same way that a car could go through the city, sort of.
And you are absolutely correct. It's like, oh no, it's just some things were just never considered when we were putting together our cities. And just, I guess, you know, they're put together, you know, a couple of 100 years ago. So there were different considerations than what our modern world is looking at now. And they were working with their limited resources, and they wanted to pile up against the water anyways, because that was the most economically viable way to do things back then. But now it's like you can pretty much plunk yourself anywheres and run a business if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, people are making huge amounts of money, you know, just from doing YouTube videos. If they get it, you know, and if that was a more fair system set up properly, millions and millions and millions. I mean, half of the planet could earn a income, a livable income from just doing YouTube videos. And then the rest of the time, they could be doing something that they enjoy. And quite frankly, I think that is a much better way for people to make money than to say a government welfare check.
Right.
I mean,
I think cottage industry is going to be huge in the next 5, 10, 20, certainly in 50 years.
and the thing,
Economy.
yeah,
In 50
and the
years,
thing is,
economy.
and the thing is that you could do videos about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, absolutely anything. Uh, I've watched these videos of a guy that's living in his van.
Mm.
I mean, it's a nice setup. Don't get me wrong. It's a nice setup. He's comfortable, but basically his videos are him going to locations in the BC mountains and hiking up a mountain and cooking food in his crock pot. And I look at the views that this guy is getting, and I just laugh my head off. I mean, this guy is making a substantial income from his YouTube videos, enough that it is sustaining him living in his van and climbing mountains. And that's just crazy. Imagine how well he would do in a if the YouTube platform was fair and had a better profit sharing model. Let's say it's like people could do whatever they want. And maybe as a society, we're ready for that. But there's always going to be those degenerates that take personal liberty too far, you know, to the point to where they begin to infringe on other people's personal liberties. There's always going to be those people. And that's probably why we're always going to need law enforcement to deal with those individuals.
I think if we can establish a system where the vast majority can live comfortably with a reasonable effort, let's say, we can define reasonable effort at some other time, but you know, without working their fingers to the bone just to survive, let's say, there will be, yeah, we'll need law enforcement still, but there will be less predation by man upon fellow man, I would think.
I personally think that people shouldn't have to work more than 5 hours a day to earn the minimum income to sustain their being. Mm-hmm. That would be the absolute minimum for So you work 5 hours a day, you get a fair wage, and that wage is based on what it's going to take for you to survive in that particular part of the country. Because not all places.
Spouse, 2 or 3 kids for, you know, for that day, for, you know, however to do that, and then something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And it would have to be based on where you live, because it takes a hell of a lot more to keep warm in a place like Saskatchewan than it does in a place like British Columbia. Mm-hmm. And you cannot compare British Columbia to Southern California. So, climate is a huge factor in economics. And these are things that short-sighted people, and they always seem to land on the left side of things. I don't know. And they don't see that. It's like, electric cars in a northern climate are not nearly as good as a internal combustion engine. But at the same time, I don't see any reason why a person who lives in a moderate climate should own an internal combustion engine. I mean, why aren't they using electric cars? Why aren't they using more, uh, 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 foot-powered vehicles? So, why isn't that happening? So there's more opportunities to create a sustainable society in a moderate climate than there is in the more northern climates. Because in the further north you go, the shorter your growing season. So it doesn't become feasible to grow all your own crops. And then you're limited by the type of crops that you can grow in certain environments. So in order to have a balanced diet, you have to import. And the only way you're going to import is if you have something to export. And in the 21st century, there's all kinds of opportunity for export. Shit, you could be a comedian in Nineveh, and you can export your comedy around the world and bring money to your community. No problem. The end result of that is probably going to be you hiring about half a dozen of the people in your community, immediate community, to help you deal with the logistics of doing such a thing. Because, I mean, once you become popular on social media, you're not just dealing with a dozen or so text messages or emails. You're now dealing with thousands. And if you really care about your craft, you're going to want to get through those thousands. But you don't have time to go through those thousands and still deal with your craft. So you hire somebody to go do that for you. And at the same time, they're weeding out all the negative shit that you don't need to see, or, and keep the good stuff, or even in the very least keep constructive criticism. Personally, I like constructive criticism. I mean, you want to insult me, it's like, you know what, I don't know, when people start debasing themselves to insults, I just figure the conversation is over. You're done talking. It's like, you want to be constructive and intelligent in your argument, I'll listen all day. I mean, why not? I might learn something. Teach me something for a change. I like that. I like learning. So what were we going to do as a topic a little bit today?
I think you said you wanted to talk about Adam and Eve. Like the story, like. Yeah.
We did start out a little bit down there.
Yeah.
A little bit down that road. I think that it's kind of, well, we're kind of seeing, I guess the story of Adam and Eve is a story of just losing faith and allowing yourself to get talked into things that you might not want to get talked into. I think what we'll do with this one, we'll start with Eve. Okay. Let's okay. What events led up to Eve betraying her husband and her creator? And the thing is that, she was beguiled and she was conned, is what it was. I think we all know that, and also set the tone for demonizing women, which actually was another way for the enemy to destroy our Creator's plan. You got to remember, everything the enemy does is to destroy God's plan. The Bible actually tells us this very, very clearly. And the reason why it got to this is because their plan failed. Remember we talked, I think it was last week, we talked a little bit about the material sons coming here, and they were going to, do it their way of uplifting humanity, and their way failed miserably. It resulted in half man, half beasts walking on the planet, and all kinds of deformities mentally and physically. And it was just a mess. And it took a catastrophe 52,000 years ago to wipe out that mess and start all over again. That's where you get your legend from the flood, that, to start all over again. It was kind of the end result of some of the things that the material sons were doing. So anyways, back to Eve. Adam and Eve had already been on the planet for about 173 years, I think it was. And by this point, they would have seen a lot of progress on a normal planet of things starting to shape up. But as it was, after 170 years of effort, they were no further ahead than the first day that they landed there.
Yeah, I think we should explain briefly what maybe they would normally, what they would expect on a quote normal planet versus what they found here. Very
okay.
briefly. Yeah, they thought they were going to a first world country. They ended up going to a third world country. is a very crude analogy. They went somewhere that didn't have fiber optic internet or something like that. They had dial-up, instead of what we have here. So what we have now, that sort of thing. They were trained. They were very highly trained scientists. It explains kind of what they were. What would be like a biochemist, bioengineer, bioscientist is what they were. Very, very, very highly skilled, very highly trained. They were accustomed to a certain level of technology and probably a certain level of communication with home. And that was lacking at the time that they arrived here. And that contributed greatly to the degradation of their mental state. Also, the humans who were here, whom they were to uplift, were not up to the point where they would have been on a regular planet. So that's at least two. Yeah, they had that, and because of the rebellion. And I guess the third thing, these all kind of interacted, but the third thing was the plot against them by Caligastia. So they had poorer conditions in the working environment, poorer working conditions. The subjects, the people, the biological level of the stock that they were to work with were not up to what they expected, and they had some kind of they had a disinformation campaign being leveled against them almost from day one. So they went into that, and then they, yeah. So okay, go ahead. Now that I can tell the story.
You said it absolutely correctly. They were used to a certain standard of operating, and that was lacking for them. And so imagine going from where you're sitting, having internet and all, and everything at your fingertips, and then just boom, middle of the wilderness where you got dick all. But they had their helpers. Tons of human helpers, thousands of human helpers, tens of thousands. And They they were doing the best they can, and they still had the problem of Caligassia being on the planet, but they were warned about him. But the problem also arose is that Caligassia was a Landadoc's son, and Adam and Eve were also raised to respect the Landadocs, because the Landadocs are the able administrators of a universe. Like these are like almost one step down from the CEO of a company. I mean, these are the executives, and they are afforded a great deal of respect. So even though Caligassia is a rebel prince, Adam and Eve still have this leftover, still have the leftover training that, Landagox deserve respect. So when Caligassia came around, Adam and Eve could not bring themselves to shoo him away, even though they could have, because he was a Landadox son. I mean, they just didn't feel it was their place. And so when Caligassia would come around, he would have conversations with Adam, and try to put ideas into Adam's head. And you also got to understand the technology that was available to Adam and Eve. It's not technology that they brought with them. It was stuff that they could make here from the environment, because they understood chemical processes, and they built up their tool chest with just nothing but what was in their brain, and they knew how to use energy. So keep that in mind too. They knew how to use energy. Energy flowed through their body as a secondary circulating system, apart from their material blood that flowed through them. So they had two circulatory systems, one of blood and one of energy. And so they were able to craft the tools that they needed. And if you understood, like, the technology that they were using is nothing like our technology. Very, very different. I guess it's similar in some ways in that their technology is also crystal based. But because they understood how crystals come together and what does what, they are able to make their projectors. But it's not so but it was like something that they could only see. It wasn't something that the normal mortal could see, because they still had like animal eyes that were evolved to see in a certain light spectrum for survival. Adam and Eve were higher beings, and they could see in a different light spectrum, like ultraviolet. And that is also how they were able to see the higher personalities on this planet. I'll get to something else about ultraviolet here in a second. And so Caligassia would come to Adam, and what I pictured was actually Adam standing at a table, and this table was made from a special mixture of crystals that he did. And what it allowed him to do is it allowed him to project up the whole of the planet so that he could see it as a hologram. And on this hologram that he'd be looking at would be the status of all the human stock that was on the planet at that time. And he could pick out a certain tribe, and when he would pull that out, it would unfold, and another screen would open up in front of him, and it would have all their information provided by the life carriers, because the life carriers helped him program this particular piece of technology, so that he would have all this information at his fingertips. so he didn't have to call the life carriers in all the time to update him on stuff. They could do it through this tool, and that allowed the life carriers to go out and do other tasks without having to be tied to the garden. That was the main purpose of this tool. And Adam and Caligastia spent a lot of time in this room together, with Caligastia trying to convince Adam. One of the things that Caligastia really tried to do is he wanted to convince Adam to start the program of uplifting prematurely. And the he was going right down the list. At first, he knew that he could never convince Adam to mate with any of the indigenous people of the earth. But so he worked on trying to convince him to send out his offspring ahead of time to go and do this work. And the reason why Caligastia was in such a hurry to do this is because he had another plan in his head to try to fuck with Adam and Eve later. And one of those plans was to build up the Nodite race to overwhelm the Adamites later on, before they were able to build up their numbers. And he knew that if he could get an Adamite and a Nodite together and to create offspring, then he would have someone that was not only intelligent, but extremely strong and more less prone to disease and less prone to broken bones. Their muscle structure would have been stronger over a few successive generations, in a very few short generations. Adam was somewhat aware of this, and it was something that he wanted to avoid, because the last thing Adam wanted to do was to create a race that could subjugate all the other races on the planet. He was trying to avoid that. He wanted to bring all the races up equally so that there would not be a chance for subjugation, and sending his children out prematurely would have done that. Caligastia also knew that in another 100 generations or so, that the Nodites would have interbred with normal human beings so much that the chances of them becoming this superhuman race on the planet goes down real quick. It would have ended up being like, they would have all been great athletes. They probably, like all the best athletes, would have ended up coming from this particular region, but they wouldn't have been so strong that they could subjugate all the other races. So that was, so Caligastia was on a bit of a timetable. And when he discovered that, but the thing was, is that it had to be the males that went in and started this process, not the female side. Okay, so that's why it was important to convince Adam to go do this, or at least to send some of his sons to do this, because if they got the uplifting from the male side, then that would have made the supermen that Caligastia was looking for. Because they would have ended up inheriting a lot of the father traits. If it came from the female side, regardless, then the female traits would have came out, and you would have ended up with a strong people, yeah, but they would have been more interested in the arts and homesteading, and that was no good to Caligastia. So, so when he finally figured out, after about 50 years of really like being on Adam's ass about this, Caligastia began to see that he wasn't going to convince Adam to change, and he certainly couldn't convince his sons either, because all of Adam's sons had the same, you know, they actually ended up developing a contempt for Caligastia, and they could not understand why their father held him in such high regard, because to Adam's sons, this was just a son of a bitch, regardless, because they didn't grow up knowing other Landadox. All they knew were the two that were on the planet, Caligastia and Delageskia. And they, you know, and as far as the Adamites were concerned, they were pricks. And they couldn't understand why their father couldn't see that, or their mother. It bothered them a little bit, but it's mom and dad, right? And so when Caligastia figured out that he couldn't do anything with Adam, he went to work on Eve. And this was not as easy as a task as you think, or would think it would be. Eve was was actually quite a bit more stubborn than Adam on these points. Eve was very loyal to her husband. Everything, you know, she wasn't messing around. It took Caligastia almost 100 years of, you know, at first he had to convince Eve to trust him. That took a little while to do. And it wasn't until a certain man came along, was born into the Nodite race, and eventually became king of the Nodites. And this guy was very charismatic, and unlike his father, who was king before him, who was very hesitant about the Adamites and really didn't want anything to do with them, this son, he embraced the Adamites. And shortly after his coronation, he visited the garden. And Adam was happy to welcome him and his people. And so a partnership soon was created between the Adamites and the Nodites. And they went through the proper training that Adam offered, and they had to swear allegiance to Adam's plan for the uplift of the planet. And so this king was all on board, so much on board that he was actually personally involved in a lot of activities that moved Adam's plan forward. And Adam had high hopes for this. And this all began to happen about 25 years leading up to Eve's betrayal. And Adam was having high hopes. And so this Nodite king, he became more you know, he was to the garden often enough that, you know, he rarely had to knock on the door. Let's put it that way. He was welcomed like family. And so he was well trusted. And one day he came to Eve and he expressed a concern that things were not going along as well as, you know, they would like. And Eve, she had already felt this way for a while, and to have somebody else to share her feelings on this, that was you know, like having a kindred spirit. So they ended up forming a tight friendship. And so when this king suggested that she come and meet this Nodite priest named Kandar, who was I don't know how to, I guess, you know, like Conan the Barbarian. He was a fit guy and he was intelligent. And so, and Eve was taken aback by him. There was an almost instant sexual attraction to this guy. So I can only imagine. He was probably put together quite well. And over a course of a couple of weeks, actually, after all the groundwork was put in place by Caligastia, then Eve succumbed to her emotions and decided that maybe it wouldn't hurt. And of course, then there were after that, there were the immediate repercussions of having gotten pregnant by a mortal of the realm. And well, the rest of the story pretty much plays out just like the Old Testament says, except they weren't chased out of. They're sort of chased out of the garden. So, anyways, what happened is that like Adam, like I said, now the Adam could see the different spectrums of light, especially in ultraviolet. And he could see something had changed in the atmosphere. And so he went to search and to find what this change was, because it concerned him. And plus, his spidey senses were probably flashing off the chart. And so his search led him to his wife. She was ashamed for what she had done because she realized immediately that she fucked up big time. And so when Adam found her, she was just an emotional wreck. And so they had to deal with that mess. That was a sad day. They ended up going before the angel that guarded the tree of life, Solon, and he had he had lines of communication off the planet, and he had already sent a message to the Melchizedeks, and he basically told them that, you fucked up big time, people. He was not happy about the situation at all. And Adam and Eve knew they fucked up when the Melchizedeks showed back up. So they showed back up and they took over government again. It's like they took all the responsibilities that were delegated to Adam and Eve. They took out of their hands. It was like, you know what, you fucked up. Give us back all of our toys. You're not allowed to play with them anymore. Sorry. And so they took over government again, the administration of the planet. Adam and Eve and the humans that lived in Eden, well, when they found out what happened, they were not happy. This is the flood that Noah led out of Eden. And they left Eden and they were pissed. They totally destroyed the Nodites, and they didn't stop there. They went after everything that Caligastia had built. And they basically, they went like a wave across the Mid-East and on into India, pissed off. The rest of the people in the garden, mostly they were the Adamites, after what the people did, destroying the Nodites, well, the Nodites that were further north, they heard about that their brothers and sisters were slaughtered, so they started heading south, and they were going to destroy Eden. Well, Adam got wind of this, and so he packed everything up and he got the hell out of Dodge. So yeah, they were chased out of Eden, but sort of not. But he chose to leave instead of fighting these guys. And so they ended up packing everything up and got out, and they went and created a new garden. But it took them about a year to get to the spot that they were looking at. And starting over in a new garden, yeah, it was hell on earth. They had to break new ground. They had to learn what the soil needs of their new home. So yeah, it was a pain in the ass rebuilding. I mean, when they showed up in the first garden, it was already about 50% complete. I mean, there wasn't that much effort. The humans had already done all the work for them, and they did it over a longer period of time, so it didn't seem like much. But now they had to work double time to get everything back up just for survival purposes. And so, yeah, they ended up doing that. And meanwhile, wars began to rage all around them. So they had to build protective walls to protect themselves from these wars that were happening. And in the end, it turned out that the safest people to turn to were actually the more wild tribes that were living in the bushes surrounding the new garden. Kind of messed up because at first they were avoiding them. And so they ended up joining with them in the end, or at least they ended up joining with them. And once they got past their fear of the Adamites, and yeah, the rest is coming up through history. There was like since so when they got to the new garden, since they had already defaulted, and Adam knew that he was like going to die now. Adam finished up his life by pretty much impregnating about 1,600 women that were strong and healthy, just to make sure that the violet race got propagated through the human race. And so he did that. And some of those women were Nodites. And it did create a Superman race, just like Adam had feared. But the flood 11,500 years ago wiped out those guys. And so they got dealt with because they were Supermen. They didn't spend much time learning industry and skills because they were Supermen. They had other people do this shit for them. And so they were not well suited for the environment after the flood. And they ended up dying out. And there were remnants of them around the world, but they did not have the survival skills that regular humans had. And that's why this version of humanity survived. Most of the survivors from that catastrophe were people that were outside of cities, and they were already like surviving off the land, with their farms and what have you. So they were best suited to survive such a catastrophe. The people that were city dwellers didn't have the skills. I mean, some of them were intelligent enough to survive, but most of them that did survived on the kindness of the survivors that were better suited to survive those things. And they were mainly kept around because they had knowledge. So that, you could almost see something like that happening today. In fact, it sounds like just about any dystopic sci-fi movie that you might watch. Zombie movies. Would you have anything to add to that, Peter?
I don't think so. It pretty much covers everything I think it needs to cover at this time, I guess. Yeah.
So that was actually the sad part about the first garden being destroyed too, is that was the first time that humans got to see females working side by side with males. And it was probably one of the last times too. Well, except for a few exceptions around the world since those times. But that's where the idea of equality between men and women really began, was in the first garden. And yeah, they had a long ways to go, and very little prep work was done for them. Now, actually, let's talk a little bit about a normal planet, just for comparison. This is going to blow some people's minds because it's going to be hard for them to wrap their head around. So the Urantia book tells us that on a normal planet, shortly after thought adjusters show up and start inhabiting the minds of man or humans on this planet, the planetary prince is assigned to that planet. Now, the planetary prince's job is to help mankind evolve societally and spiritually. So spiritually first. This is why. So the first thing that a planetary prince sets to work on is to get the humans to a monotheistic mindset, and to to get away from nature worship and idol worship and all like that. So that's one of the first things that a planetary prince sets to work on, and this can take up to 200 to 300,000 years. Our progress got interrupted 300,000 years after it began. So you can see that things were just starting to roll along. And then, so after 300,000 years, there's intermixed between all that animal husbandry and agriculture and cultivation, so that by the time 300,000 years elapse, mankind is still evolving physically. This is still going on. It's also, at this time, it's prudent for the planetary prince to direct efforts in eugenics by selective breeding of the human stock. And this is how they talk, by the way. This is not how I talk. This is how they talk. They talk like we're an agricultural planet. We're agriculture to them. We're basically, we're pods that soul seeds can be planted in, and those soul seeds can grow and evolve and then go on into the greater universe with the memories that are and experience that are built up from living. Again, there's no other way to explain it. So that's how they look at it. And so at this point in history, they look at us more like cattle than they do as equals. We're not equals at this point in our evolution. We're not, to them, we're not equals yet, but we're getting there, and they know the potential. Remember, in the Father's universe, potential is absolute, and human free will is absolute. So these beings, they've been raised on that philosophy. They've lived in this philosophy for hundreds of thousands of years. They're eternal. These are eternal truths to them. So when they looked at us, even though they were looking at us like we were just livestock, they also were looking at us, half a million years down the road too, to where we get to the point to where we are their equals. And we're walking back and forth between time and space and the real on a regular basis.
Yeah, the difference between us and, say, domesticated animals is that we have the potential to be far, far more than that. We're at this place right now, we have huge potential. Most of us do to go to heights that we couldn't imagine at this point.
Cows have been domesticated, have been living with humans for hundreds of thousands of years. A cow didn't invent the iPad. So what more can you say than that, right? Same thing with dogs. I mean, dogs have been living with us for hundreds of thousands of years as well. But you don't see a dog on a typewriter. But you see lots of humans. So that's the difference between humans. And they know this. So even while they're doing it, but the thing is that they're far seeing, they're looking down the road. So they're looking at getting rid of all the degenerate stocks, any disease out of the herd, essentially. No different than what farmers do today. I mean, you got a cow in your pasture that has disease. You don't leave it there. You separate it. You get it the hell out of your pasture. You isolate that animal because you want to see what's going to happen, but you don't want whatever's going on with that animal to spread to the rest of your herd. Well, that's basically what Caligacia's staff was supposed to do. And he had a big staff. He had about 1,000 people come here with him, and he could always ask for more. But he started out with 1,000. Out of that 1,000, there were 100 superhumans. These were adjuster fused humans from other planets in our local system, and they had volunteered to detach themselves from their thought adjusters so that they could come to this planet to help out. They were happy to. And so bodies were fashioned for them, but the idea was for these beings to also procreate later. So they had to be infused with human plasma, blood. And so 100 humans from the Andedite race and from the Sagnac races were chosen. More Andedite than Sagnac. And the Sagnacs are the colored races. So at that time on the planet, there were six colored races plus the Andedites. So the 6 colored races were indigo, blue, orange, green, yellow, and red. And so they represented the Sagnac races, and they were part of this too. And so so their plasma was mingled with these superhumans, and so that these superhumans later on down the road can procreate with the humans. But it was going to be a long ways down the road. That was a long ways off. So lots of patience. And they were not allowed to, and again, they were not to procreate directly with the human race. Their offspring were to procreate with the human race, just like the Adamites. But again, that was a long ways down the road. I think they weren't going to mate among themselves for at least 100 to 200,000 years after the Adamites had arrived. That was the original plan. So the Adamites were to get their head start, and then these superhumans were going to add their plasma to the human race later on down the road, when the human race was coming together to be one, basically one color, one tongue, so that, and then you think to yourself, well, what about the diversity? Are you forgetting? There's like a couple of hundred other million planets out there. There's lots of diversity between planets. You don't need that much diversity on one planet. It causes for too much confusion. And also remember, the plan also includes us getting off of our planet. We're supposed to get off the planet, starting with exploring our solar system, learning, getting to learn the hazards of outer space, and developing our technology around that. There's different ways that different societies have done it. Some have done it energetically, so they can surround themselves with their own space vehicle, and then off they go. Other races, other planets have done it mechanically, and other races, our planet has done it mechanically, chemically and mechanically, to get off the planet. But where we need to be is we need to be in a mechanical, energetic state. So where we're using mechanics and energies, universal energies, to create a system that will get us off the planet. That's coming. Don't worry. That's already on its way. So that's normally how it's done. And then from your solar system, it's out to the galaxy. And out in our galaxy, we're not going to find other father-fused races. We're the only father-fused race in our galaxy. And so what we'll find for other races out in our galaxies, we'll find spirit-fused races. And they stay in the local universe. Father-fused has the opportunity to leave. That is not to say that these spirit-fused creatures cannot be father-fused. They can be father-fused later. But as it is, they are basically, these are Michaels. These are the spirits that stay in the local universe to work within the local universe and never leave. And so those are the beings that we're going to meet. And I think we talked about this before. This is where the spirit of discernment, or the gift of discernment, comes into play, because we will not know the difference between an animal and these spirit-fused creatures without the gift of discernment, because we're just dumb animals in the end. So we've got to know the difference, so that we can be like, oh, okay, yeah. You are inhabited by the spirit of Michael of Nebadon. You got to give that respect, and you take a step back, and you don't jump on that planet and try to steal all their resources. Go to an empty planet instead. And there are plenty of empty planets in our little galaxy. Millions, hundreds and millions of empty planets in our little galaxy alone. So there's no shortage of empty planets. These planets consist of all animal life. And these are planets that the life carriers get to have lots of fun with. And they're creating a variety of animal life. They've got millions, if not billions, to choose from. And they'll take and look at a planet, look at the environmental potentials, and decide what animals could go on that planet, and they do. What ends up happening in the future is we have a few more gifts to go, and we have more teaching to go, but in the future, when we leave this planet and this solar system, what we will have the ability to do is, when we land on these empty planets, is we will have the ability to call on the Father and ask that he send his adjunct spirits to minister to the planet. And the Father will. And one of them is the spirit of wisdom and the spirit of worship. These are the two adjuncts that are missing from all of these empty planets that have animal life. Because these two spirits are exclusively ours, and there's a reason for that. And so we can get the Father to manifest, and when that happens, it's another potential planet to be moved into the age of light and life within Michael's universe.
Okay.
Are you starting to see the picture here of how all of this is connected on out through our galaxy and on out to the universe? I mean, all of these spheres, empty spheres, are going to be transformed into human spheres brought into light and life. And then what is that going to do for the universe? It's going to start connecting circuits. Look at everything like it's a circuit board. Everything's going to start connecting, and all these circuits are going to start plugging in. Next thing you know, you have this light and life energy just surrounding this whole universe. And I don't know. Sometimes I think that there are monsters out there in the outer space realms of the outer space, meaning out from the universes of time and space, because I look at our situation on this planet. I mean, I think we said this before, just for shits and giggles. It seems like this planet is creating spiritual warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Because where do the best warriors usually, I mean, we've all read stories about, the hero story where the hero starts out with humble beginnings and then a struggle, and then boom, becomes this great hero that saves the village. That seems to be the constant theme through the whole Urantia experience. Is that, and there are not too many other planets out there that are struggling the way Urantia is. And I'll guarantee you, there are no other planets out there with a history in their morphogenic fields like Urantia. I mean, see, the other planets that rebelled were further along in their evolution than we were. They were very much along. A lot of these planets already had their Adam and Eve. And their Adam and Eve were already well on their way with their mission. The rebellion breaks out on this planet, and we are less than 300,000 years from the beginning. I mean, we got 300,000 years in, and then everything went to shit. Other planets had at least well over 500,000 years, and some of them even 1,000,000 years of evolution under their belt before rebellion came to their planet. So we were the youngest and the hardest hit because we were the youngest planet. So we got a real shit kicking. But yet here we are, and the planet's still here.
And I was going to say, because this happened when we were so, quote, young, we might have maybe the best chance to rebound from it. Do you think?
I don't know. There might be some people. I don't know. I'll tell you, the best person qualified to answer that question is probably a psychologist that deals with child traumas.
Yes.
Because that's basically what it is. I mean, we are a species on a planet that have been traumatized.
Right.
Yeah, and we are traumatized at a very young age. Mm-hmm. When you really think about it. And we're still not a very old society. I mean, in terms of of universal time, we're just coming into our teen years. We might be somewhere around a 16, 17-year-old mindset as a species.
Okay.
And just like any 16 or 17-year-old, we think we know it all. And, you know, it isn't until, you know, you get well into your 20s that you begin to realize that, oh shit, we really didn't know it all. But we do have the advantage of being traumatized by losing a parent to murder, no less. Let that one sink in. We lost our creator father to murder.
Okay. Yeah.
Mind you, we as a species did it, but nonetheless, it's a trauma. And, you know, children that lose a parent tend to grow up a whole lot quicker than children that have the advantage of having two living parents or a living parent. So there's that to take into consideration too.
Okay, yeah. So I guess if I had to play psychologist for a moment, I would say that the degree to which a child can rebound from a trauma is, you know, what happens to it later, what kind of care it gets, what experiences, if it's re-exposed to trauma, if it's re-exposed to that type of trauma, or what, you know, positive. There's a whole bunch of variables, but it's going to be simply what kind of good to bad ratio it experiences going forward.
Actually, you know what's really cool? Is the Urantia book actually addresses this a little bit. Anyways, so basically what the Urantia book says is that a good environment doesn't necessarily help a already damaged child. But a bad environment for a otherwise normal child is never helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, hi. We got Tim. Hello, Tim. Welcome.
Hey, Tim. I got so many bookmarks in this.
That's odd that I've seen my watch count has been up to 3 and as low as 1, but just now it just gave me the notification that Tim was watching. I don't know who else was watching, but anyway, it's whatever. That's fine. We're still learning.
We are still learning. Here we go. Well, here's one thing that I like. Culture proposes quality of mind. Culture cannot be enhanced unless mind is elevated. Superior intellect will seek noble culture and find some way to attain such a goal. Inferior minds will spurn the highest culture even when presented to them ready-made.
Yeah, I can see that. Yep.
And it's true. It's true. Oh, and also another little side note, in the Urantia book, we're told that there is a special place for people that have such inner strength that they can hold their faith even when completely isolated. And they call them agondinators. And what a gondinator means, it means evolutionary will creatures who can believe without seeing, persevere when isolated, and triumph over insurmountable difficulties even when alone.
Okay. Cool.
Isn't that something?
Jason. Hello, Jason. Hi. Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's not not surprising that the writers of the book explained all this stuff, because, you know, some of them have been around for trillions of years and they have all this catalog. But yeah, no, they knew what sorts of things we needed to know when they put this book together. So yeah, if something's in the Urantia book, it's probably in there for a reason. Relevant to us. It's relevant. Jared, hi, welcome, Jared.
Well,
Yeah.
The thing is that they wrote this book, and as far as I can tell, and I thought about this, they wrote this book at just the right time when you really think about it, because it was written in a time when people were receptive to these ideas, at least in the community where this was disclosed.
Yeah.
And also they wanted to place it at a period in time to where people in our generation would be able to trace its origins.
Yes.
It's like they knew that the people of this time were not going to believe any piece of bullshit that gets placed in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it also had to be set back in far enough in time so that it could prove its worth to us here almost 100 years later.
Yeah, and just to clarify for those who don't know, the Urantia book was, let's say, delivered to this planet approximately around 1935. And the publication, it wasn't published until about 20 years later. I think the publication date is 1955 when it was first published in Chicago. Interestingly enough, I think that's where most of the people probably were that were dealing with it. Is why that I don't know if there's some special reason Chicago was chosen, or if it was just where these people happened to be who were dealing with the publication and so on of the book. But that's a little bit of the history of it on this planet.
Well, you also got to look at
didn't become really well known until, I don't know, I suppose like 10 years ago, or maybe even less. I don't know. I only heard about the thing from you like 2 or 3 years ago. I never really knew it existed before, I don't think.
I didn't know it existed before either, and I was shocked that it had not entered my reality earlier.
May I ask how you became aware of it? Because I just wondered.
That is actually a good question.
How did Krow find out about the book? Because
I think somebody mentioned it in a YouTube video.
Okay.
And it was made in passing. And they made reference that a couple of rock and roll singers, well known at the time. I forget their names, but these were like musicians that I had always felt were like genuine and truthful musicians. And I'm sorry, I can't remember their names. And so when I'm like, this book was mentioned in passing, and it flashed a picture of one of these artists holding the book, and I was like, what the fuck is that? I was like, what the hell are you reading, buddy? And so I went and did a search. And then of course I found the website, and I was like, no fucking way. I was like, I gotta read this. I was like, just for shits and giggles. I was like, what the hell are these people? What kind of bullshit are they trying to push on us now, was probably my first thought. Because I always look at this stuff and I think to myself, this is just more bullshit. Let's see what new age bullshit you've come up with now. It's pretty much what went through my mind. So I sat down, I started reading it. And I went through the contents of it, and I seen a section on the Luciferian rebellion, And I was like, ah, there we go. There is a subject that I have always been fascinated with, the Luciferian rebellion. And I've always I've read a lot of the lore behind it that you'll read in you know, uh, Christian text. But I also went outside that and started reading the evil one in Hindi religion. And just I was just fascinated by this character that that rebelled against his creator. It just it fascinated me. And so anyway, so I was already quite familiar with the Lucifer story. And after a lot of research, I already had a good picture in my mind of what made sense and what didn't make sense in all the stories that I read in, I guess, myth, in mythology, I guess, yeah. And so, anyways, I read that, the Lucifer Rebellion in the Urantia book, and I was like, no fucking way. Because when I read it, I was like, this has got to be the most accurate telling of the Lucifer Rebellion that I have ever read in my life. And it was also a little novel in in how it described things. And I was just like, wow. So after reading that, I went to the front of the book and I started reading from the beginning. Totally skipped the forward, which was a bad idea, by the way. I probably should have read the forward, but I went back and read it. And then I started reading from the beginning about God the Father, how the universe works. And I was just like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And after reading, it's like everything that I had ever learned in science and theology all started to come together.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God. It's like it took into account everything in the physical world that we deal with. And I just blown away. I was like, and my first thought was, this should have, if they had published this as a work of fiction, people would be studying this shit in university. And I just sat there and I scratched my head and I was like, but they chose to publish it as a work of nonfiction. And of course, that's what held up its being introduced into society, of course. This stuff here, there is no way the enemy wants any of this out there, because this frees the human mind. If you don't know what I'm pointing at the computer screen, and I've got the PDF up in front of me of the Urantia book, as I always do when we're doing these talks. And so, yeah, this frees the human mind. And the last thing that they wanted to do was free the human mind. And it's part of the reason why Peter and I ended up doing these broadcasts. Is I'm not trying to convince you of anything. Neither Peter or I want to convince you of anything. We're not preachers or anything like that, but we want to free your mind from being enslaved. It's like there is a whole other universe out there, and if you don't believe me, I challenge you to walk outside at night and just look up on a clear night. How much more proof do you want? Just because it's there all the time doesn't make it any less important or even complex. Just because you see something every day doesn't mean that it's not complex. Look at the automobile you drive down the road every day. That's the culmination of 100 years of technology and research. Like, seriously, we got cars that drive themselves. Do you think Henry Ford envisioned that? Hell no. Hell, when people started converting his cars into trucks, he was like, shit, that's a good idea. So he started building trucks. So yeah, so there's a whole thing going on out there. I mean, you got to open up your mind and understand that, number one, you got two choices laid in front of you, as far as I am concerned. You can either believe that the universe is mechanistic, clockwork, runs wholly on instinct. That's it. You can believe that, or you can believe that there is a God, and that God is the Father of creation and is a person and has a personality. Those are your two choices right there. You have a force that just does its thing out of instinct, or you have a personality in God the Father. That's your two choices. And I can only take the mechanistic universe so far, and then that model begins to break down immediately. The only thing that actually saves that model is morphogenic fields. But then you run into a problem. What holds together and what organizes the morphogenic fields? Instinct? Force? Gravity? Magnetics? None of those fit the bill. What it actually would take is an intelligence. And then you have the other problem. Okay, so let's say this universe does start out as mechanistic, instinct-driven. Let's say it does, for argument's sake. Actually, I love this argument. Starts out wholly mechanistic, wholly instinctual. Somehow, some way, the dice was rolled, I don't know, 50 billion times. And finally, boom, the Big Bang. Everything mixed just right, just perfect. All your elements came together, your oxygen, your carbon, your hydrogen. Everything happened just in the perfect quantities, all by accident. And it all came out of the Big Bang. Let's say that happened. And then out of that came morphogenic fields. The basis of morphogenic fields is memory. Morphogenic fields cannot work without memory. How that memory is stored, how it's retrieved, that's a whole other discussion in itself. But we know without a doubt, the evolutionists in university can tell you whatever the fuck they want. You want to read real science, go read Rupert Sheldrake. He lays it out step by step. The science is definitive. Morphogenic fields exist. They are a memory field in nature, and they hold the memory of everything from the beginning and to the end. That end might be right this second, plus one. The universe is always infinity plus one. So the morphogenic fields are memories, okay? So we start out, the morphogenic field remembers how to mix atoms and how hydrogen and oxygen can go together and make water. Water can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Okay, let's say it's all happening by accident and by mechanistic mechanisms. But you still have morphogenic fields that are necessary, and they are memory. If you have memory, you have intelligence. And if you don't have intelligence right away, you will eventually have intelligence. Because memory and intelligence, side by side, just like magnetism and gravity, side by side, all the way from the beginning to the end. So no matter which side of the dial you find yourself on, you're still going to find yourself dealing with morphogenic memory and the intelligence that has evolved out of that memory. And maybe that memory is God. And then you have to accept that when God says that he was the beginning and God says he was the end, it ain't bullshit, because the morphogenic fields were born out of the Big Bang. And if that is the beginning, then we have memory extending across billions and billions of years. For our local universe alone, I mean, we've calculated it out to about 16 billion years is the age of our universe. I suspect that it's more like 18 billion years, maybe a little bit more. But that is, right now, that is what science is saying. 16 billion years old is our universe. So 16 billion years of morphogenic memory. What do you think that's going to create?
Okay. So let's see, we got, yeah, we're heading to 5 minutes to 4. Is there any closing statements you want to say, or do we want to kind of discuss what we might talk about next time, or how we're, folks, we're kind of still, how many we've had, I don't know, probably 20, 25, 30 episodes by now, probably, and we're still kind of tweaking this thing. It's evolving. But we're almost, if we're not careful, we're gonna have a format for this if we're not careful. My goodness, God forbid.
I don't know. If people find it interesting and it opens their mind and wakes them up, then that would be great. Actually, here's something interesting. And my God, if it's true, wow, talk about vindication. Greta Thunberg, we all know who Greta Thunberg is. I hope I don't have to explain that. The child activist. She tweeted out today. Oh, man. Oh, I can't. Or maybe I can. I want to get it right.
Let me see if I can look it up. I'll look it up. I don't know if I can find it because I'm not on Twitter, but...
Well, I got Twitter on the desktop. It's just a matter of the computer loading it.
Greta, I'll just look up Greta.
I've already learned that if I touch anything on this phone, it cuts us right off.
Okay. And it's what, recent, like today or yesterday or this week or something?
Yeah.
Okay, just 18 minutes. 18th birthday with a hilarious message. Is it that one?
Yeah. What's her message there?
Let me see. I'm just to see if I can bring it up. I'm going through. Let's see. Okay, and tell me if this is right, because I haven't actually seen the message before. What I'm guessing it is, she says, "Thank you so much for all the well wishes on my 18th birthday. Tonight you will find me down at the local pub exposing all the dark secrets behind the climate and school strike conspiracy and my evil handlers who can no longer control me. I am free at last," she amusingly captioned the post. Is that the poster? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I don't know whether she is trying to make a joke or she is serious. It's hard to tell. But
so basically what I'm getting out of it is it's the inverse of Joe Biden, Joe Biden's thing about, saying we have put together the most comprehensive election fraud campaign in history. And there's no, if you watch the larger video, I mean, what he's supposed to be saying. It's the Democrats have secured the election or whatever to make sure there's no election fraud is what he's trying to say. But if you quote that, you can he's admitting to election fraud, and it's, remains to be seen exactly whether he means that or not, but it's funny. So this thing from Greta is kind of the opposite. She's tongue-in-cheek saying she told her handlers to take a hike, and she's
flipped basically. She was this
Yeah.
climate warrior, full on climate change, environmental collapse proponent. We have to do all this stuff to save the world, and now she's saying it could be construed that she's saying she's free now, as a quote joke, but we wonder.
Exactly. We wonder. I mean, did she break through her MK Ultra programming? That would be amazing. That would be probably that could only be contributed to the gift of discernment.
Yeah. Oh, and I just figured this out. And I realized it for a while, but I only now kind of figured out how to put it into words. The psyops folks, okay, that's a real thing, but it functions on one level. God functions on like infinitely higher levels, so he can just update our programming. Software update, MK Ultra doesn't work anymore.
And that's what the gift of discernment is doing. It upgraded our programming, essentially. It's like we made it to the next level. We were brought to the next level. We leveled up, and now, if the old tools don't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And this has actually been going on for a while. I noticed it started noticing it back in 2011. And I made a prediction at that time that once the new energies have established themselves in our environment, all the old spells that people tried to cast to try to control people, to try to manipulate people, I was like, those spells are going to start reversing on people. And I warned a lot of friends that I had at that time in the pagan and witch communities, and I told them, I was like, you are going to have to start rethinking your magic, because I warned them that if they try to use magic to control or manipulate, I was like, you will find yourself in dire straits. I said, so don't do that. I said, leading up to this time, I said, this is the time when you need to start changing your magic to be more uplifting. You want to be uplifting people, because the way the new magic was going to work is what you sent out was what you were going to get back. Like karma, sort of like, I think at the time I described it as karma was going to become more instantaneous than it was in the past. So instead of waiting years for karma, you were looking at days and weeks. And I said, that will destroy you. So, and look at what has happened since. I said, once we get through 2012, I said, these energies will become solidified. And then I said, shortly after that, I said, anybody that is still practicing the old methods, I said, they will be destroyed. They will find themselves spiritually destitute. And then shortly after that, no doubt economically destitute, because a lot of them used their magic to bring them wealth. And that magic was not going to work anymore, because what it involved was taking without giving back, is what it was like, or like taking 2 cups of sugar but only returning 1.
Okay.
Yeah, the new energies are reciprocal. The new energies require a fair exchange of energy. It has to be a one-to-one thing. And so if you want to do like destructive magic, you would almost have to invite destruction upon yourself first before you could send that destructive energy out to, say, your enemy.
Huh.
Who's going to go through that? I mean, you would really have to not like somebody to do that.
So I think I can sum up what we've been talking about in the last few minutes this way. There's been a lot of talk about the COVID vaccine, right? So this gift of discernment is almost Michael giving us a vaccine swamp.
Mm. Yes, vaccine against the swamp.
Cosmic
And
vaccine, yeah.
cosmic vaccine. And I'll tell you, what a perfect time to pour out such a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the state of things around the world. I mean, everybody knows that there's something wrong, but they can't put their finger on it. And now, last couple of weeks, people have been starting to put their finger on the problem. And it's pretty much bullseye. And it's like, and it's coming from places that we never would have guessed.
Right, yes.
Yeah. And I just, people that we never would have guessed.
Yep.
Or like that were, did not have our best interests. And these are people that we call our leaders. And so, yeah, it's all starting to come out. But again, it's going to be slow and painful.
Oh dear.
But
oh dear.
every time,
Go ahead.
every time we get gutted in the news and or betrayed, all it is just another swing of the hammer on the nails going into the cross.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. And guess what? We haven't even got to the best part yet. We have yet to be plunked into the ground. We're going to go through what our Creator went through in a, what do you call it?
What's the word? I think I know what you're talking about, but
In a
symbolic.
metaphoric, symbolic way.
Okay.
Yeah, we are going to go through the crucifixion. Every time we get gutted, I've seen it, and actually it's actually pretty strange. I'm actually seeing it from Michael's point of view. I'm looking up at Buddy swinging the hammer. And every time we get gutted, it's pound. And I'm like, yep, deal with it, because Michael did. And that's what I've been seeing is just pound. And I ask myself, how many fucking swings of the hammer did it take to put in each nail? So count them up. Count them up over the last 4 years. Like, I'm talking about the times when, like, the whole world got gutted, not just personally. Like, you get gutted in the news, and then you open up your Twitter, and you see everybody else feeling exactly the same way as you do. It's just like, oh, God. And then you think to yourself, or you post, Patriots, hold the line. As it's rough. We know it's rough, but we know the truth. Just hold. That's all you can do. If we can't go forward, then just hold. And yeah, I mean, it's been a spiritual war, and it's been only getting worse. So I expect a huge gutting on January 6th. Huge gutting.
I think I can actually speak to what Krow was talking about the Patriots. I think this is going to be the year of the digital soldier, and I can give a little bit of experience about that. It's what he's talking about is kind of a little bit scary on the surface, but it's actually fairly easy, I think, to let me just tell you about this this guy on Facebook who he blocked me, and in the process of that, I was, let's see, since about last May when I first getting into these atheist theist discussion groups, my skin has gotten so much thicker. And a couple of the folks who were raking me over the coals in the beginning, one of the guys actually said recently, you might be an addition to this particular group, which is about people who are leaving theism. He recommended me, a theist, he knows I'm a theist, for this group to support those who are questioning. It's not an anti-theist group, it's a theists who are, you know, leaving theists behind, maybe becoming atheist. Or I'm actually going to tell my story in that because it's kind of interesting, or it might help some people who are going through profound changes in the way they understood the world, I think is what the group is for, though maybe some of them don't know it yet. So anyway, that said, this recent guy, the just absolute troll, I think he was either trolling deliberately or had, I don't know what kind of issue, but I was, at the end, I was not negatively affected by his anti-theist rant and personal attacks against me and everything. And I'm just going to say, when he blocked me, I felt like he had conceded a contest that I won when he blocked me. So that's a little bit of my experience as a digital soldier in 2021. And I'll just end with this. I think it's very interesting. Greta's tweet, she tweeted that on her 18th birthday. If that actually happened to her, it's very interesting that it happened the moment she reached what would be the age of majority in most Western countries, the age of 18.
Yeah, that is interesting too.
Yeah.
And in the Urantia book, 18 seems to be the year that that even the higher personalities have chosen as a year in a person's life to where they become responsible for themselves and are expected to make their own decisions. And so there is something to be said about that.
Isn't that even in Jesus's life, when he became 18, when he was at the age of 18, I think something fairly significant happened. Yeah, am I remembering correctly? Because I don't.
No, in the Jewish.
Telling you more than I know.
I can't think of anything right now, but his 13th year, see, in the Jewish tradition, it's the 13th year that you become a man.
That's right, yes.
You know, you get your bar mitzvah, and in Jesus's case, he was taken up to the temple because he was the firstborn of Joseph and Mary. He was dedicated to the temple and in turn dedicated to the Eternal Father in a surreptitious way, I guess. And so that, so I guess that would be the, that would, for that culture, it was 13. But in the higher personalities, when they came after Adam and Eve defaulted, when the seraphims came to deliver their messages and also to evacuate any Adamites that wanted to leave the planet, that they could, this is your last ride out. And so and they clearly state that anybody that was above the age of 18 had their choice, that they could either stay or they could leave. It turned out that 2/3 of them decided to leave. They probably seen the shit show that was coming on the horizon. It's like, nope, I'm out of here. And 1/3 of them decided to stay. All of those that were under the age of 18, they had no choice. They were scooped up and taken off the planet. And just as a little side note, 2 of those came back. And, well, we know who they are today, and they're still here with us.
Yeah, I think we
And
talked about that a little bit, didn't we?
yeah, and I've come to this conclusion all on my own. Nobody had to tell me this, and it's only because of their actions. Everything they do reminds me of the Adamites and what they were doing. Everything.
Huh.
Except the difference is that this is no farmer. This is no farmer. Think this guy, yeah, he knows strategy, and he learned all of his skills at Adesha or Eden. Anyways, at the capital of our local of the grand universe.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and so he learned strategy, battle strategy,
Okay.
because he was not happy what happened to his parents, and he knew exactly what happened to his parents. So him and his partner have been studying battle strategies and administration for almost 50,000 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they've forgotten more than most of us will ever know about battle strategy. And every time I look at the plan, I look at Q's plan, and I just like, God damn, it's perfect. It's perfect in every way. And it blows my mind every time I look at it. It's perfection. I mean, it doesn't look like it on the surface, but when you look at what Q is doing to program the morphogenic field of this planet through their posts, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I read almost 5,000 of them, and it was interesting. In the first 100 or 200, I could see, and the brilliance of this. I was given a choice. I knew that if I focused on them in a certain way, it would reprogram the way I think. It didn't force me to do that. I had the choice to continue or not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you read Q's posts and kind of look at them in a certain way, it will reprogram your brain a little bit to think a bit differently.
It breaks down so that your brain it starts to compartmentalize things.
Yeah.
So that you can separate them and see them for what they are, instead of having them all amalgamated together and just be like, alphabet soup.
And as a side note, it's interesting. We'll have to maybe make these sessions, I don't know, like a little long, because it takes an hour and a half or something to kind of get ramped up, because now we're into the, I don't know what the viewers think, but we're kind of into a dynamic now.
How many people are watching?
Well, it just says one, and people may watch it later, but I'm not worried about the view count. I mean, people will watch it later, and I think the big thing is it's important that we have this conversation and put it out there on the internet for people to find.
Might consider just slicing it in two.
Okay.
Yeah, just two parts. Because I know what you mean. Nobody wants to, go through a whole 2-hour, 3-hour session. That can be pretty rough.
We could do like an hour and a half, and then we could take a 10-minute thing, and then like we could have a part A and a part B, or something like that.
Well, even taking a break for us, it breaks the momentum.
Yes. Well,
and yeah, it does break up the momentum. I don't know. To me, it's like maybe in the future, you just don't have to look at just uploading the whole thing as one long stream. Maybe just split it up, break it down into like 2 or 3 parts, and then people can.
That's what all the guys do. So I'll have to learn some video editing. It's not difficult. It's just kind of something I need to do. Anyway, I'm gonna make, I guess, one last statement that I thought of. I forgot about this when I was talking about the guy who blocked me on Facebook, and I know it wouldn't have done any good to him at all. But to somebody like that, I have yet to say, and I'd like to say something like, there is still time to renounce Lucifer, child.
Oh, that
Because I
actually,
don't care anymore. You know, I got nothing to prove to these people. Just throwing this stuff at them, it may, you know, I don't know how it affects them, but nothing they say or do affects me so much, really.
this is something that I'll say to people, and it's right along the lines of what you just said. And it kind of amused me when I thought about it. And I was like, maybe I'll try this, Nick, if somebody comes up to me about a mask issue. Try rebuking them in the name of Jesus and see what happens. In the very least, I think it's just going to fuck up their day. I think that it really would. I mean, you imagine somebody coming up, get your fucking mask off, and just be like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, servant of Lucifer. And then turn around and walk away. I mean, even if you took all the, like, hocus pocus stuff out and just focused on the psychological impact of saying that to somebody, I think it would mess up their whole day. I think it would just leave them standing in one spot and not being able to move. And then you just be like, yeah, that is the power of Jesus right there.
It throws some messed up energy. I know that much.
Mm. Yeah. So, I mean, even if you don't believe it, from a psychological point of view, it's going to mess up somebody's day. From a spiritual point of view, they're gonna leave you alone. They're going to back off because, you know, even if they don't believe in Jesus themselves, just saying it out loud has power. Mm-hmm. Has power on a spiritual and psychological level. It's going to, and like I said, no matter which way you want to look at it, it's still going to mess up somebody's day. So if you don't believe, use it anyways. If you believe, it's going to become all that much more powerful. I mean, you know, because I mean, what would you say to a person that would say that to you? I would think that every argument that was already in your head just got stalled. And when you think about that, that is actually the power of his name, that it can do that to people. When you really think about it, that is powerful. Shut somebody down immediately. I'd love to see all the patriots start doing that. That would be, to me, that would be super interesting.
Yeah. So let me, I'm gonna maybe we should shut it down in a second, but I just want to run something by you. There is on one of the furry Facebook pages, somebody was saying, yeah, what something about some kind of a, he was planning a furry con or something, and some other person said, you know, they immediately they didn't say they wanted to have it now, maybe later on or something, and one of these you know, COVID scaredy cat folks said, well, you know, what about, but I'm seriously thinking about going to that post and telling that person, if you're afraid of getting, you know, if you're afraid of getting COVID at the con, don't go to the con. And I know what arguments they might say, but I think it's almost to the point that we point out to these people, okay, you're scared of dying from a virus, fine. Any of us, almost any of us could die from almost anything at almost any time. We took that risk by being born. I don't know. So it's like, you know, what?
I mean, to me,
do I go on the offensive about these people? I'm not sure it's quite time to go all out, but I'm thinking of strategies.
I mean, I'll never understand the logic of this whole thing. It's like, if you're scared of catching COVID, stay the fuck home. I ain't got a problem with that. Stay home. Just stay out of society. I don't care. You want to come out into society, you want to wear your hazmat suit, and you want to wear your mask, great. Why do I need a mask to protect you? Do I need to wear a helmet all day to protect the motorcyclist that's going down the road at 110? It just seems ridiculous to me that I've got to wear safety gear to protect somebody else.
Right.
Now, I grew up in the trades. I always thought that safety gear was for my safety. At least that's what my training always was. My steel-toe boots are not going to protect your feet. They're protecting my feet. The hard hat that I wear on a construction site is not protecting the guy beside me. It's protecting me. Isn't that what safety equipment is supposed to do? They call it PPP. Personal protective, I forget what the other P is for.
PPE, first personal protective equipment, I think is.
Yeah, PPE.
Good.
So it even says right in the acronym, oh, you got to wear your PPE. That's personal protective equipment. I don't need no protection from a virus. I'm type O blood. I'm at the bottom of the list for the type that gets COVID. The chances of me getting COVID are like below 25%. It's way down there. It's significantly higher, I think, for type A blood types. But for type O, here's my favorite. Talk about history being or karma being a bitch. Probably a little known fact. Most of the indigenous peoples in North America are type O blood. Meaning they're pretty much immune to this COVID. And the rest of us are, the rest of the blood types, which mostly come from Europe, are not. And I've been out on the First Nations reserves, and I've had conversations. And I was talking, they've got, when you go onto the First Nation reserves right now, they've got people at the gates. Well, they don't have gates, but they got people, on the road going in, and the road, any roads going into the reserve, they've got people stationed, and they're screening everybody coming through. And it's a good idea. And I ended up having conversations with these people, of course, because they're people to me. I don't see any differences between me and them, and not like other people that see skin color. I see their skin color, but it doesn't mean anything other than interesting facial features. And so I ended up getting into a conversation, and I started asking, it's like, have you guys had an outbreak or any cases at all on the reservation? Big fat goose egg is what I was told on 2 separate reserves. 2. And when I talked to one person, they cannot. I asked them, have you heard anything from the other surrounding reservations? Clean as a whistle. No COVID. So I'm and then you hear reports from these isolated communities up north, and they're like, oh, they've got a COVID outbreak. And I'm thinking to myself, how? The only way in and out of there is through a plane or a sled. There's no roads going into these communities except in the wintertime. And I'm thinking to myself, how? Explain to me how. And there is zero way, unless you have family up there, to find out if they're telling the truth. You'll never know. It's like the joke I always like to say when used to do a lot of flying. You get transported somewheres, and you would land, and they would tell you that you are in a certain place on the planet. I used to love turning to the guys, and it's like, how do we even know that's true? How do you know that we have landed exactly where they say we have landed? How do we know? I mean, we could be at the South Pole for all we fucking know. Oh, yeah, but we were only in the plane for 6 hours. Well, then we could be in northern Russia then. I mean, you're telling me that, we're in, some Yukon, obscure Yukon outpost. How do I know that I'm actually in Yukon? I could have been flown anywhere in the world. Hell, they could have knocked me out for like 5 hours by flooding the cabin with gases. And I wake up, I would just think that I got tired and fell asleep. Happens, right? Happens. I mean, everybody waking up and then all of a sudden you're somewhere else. You don't know whether you've been in the air for like 4 hours or 14 hours. So yeah, I always loved playing that, playing with people's minds like that when we landed in like these strange places and sometimes when you landed, you'd get out, you'd start looking at the landscape, you kicked a few rocks and you wondered even if you were still on the same planet. That'd be that much of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And you really wondered if you were on another planet when you're up north. I mean, the days just go on forever and ever. It doesn't even get dark in the summertime. It gets dusk, and then sun's right back up. I always thought to myself, great potential for solar panels. So yeah, so you think that's it?
Yeah, I think we'll wind it down, and that's all I've got. And I'm gonna let you sign off and exit then, because I cut you off the last time.
Yeah. I something came into my head the last time, but my mind's pretty blank right now. So I'm Krow.
I'm Peter.
And I hope we answered some questions and hopefully opened your mind. Salute.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're done.